This is Sports Talk with Steve Jones, a Seven Mountains Media production, your daily talk show with the voice of Penn State football and men's basketball, featuring interviews with special guests. Now here is your host, Mr. Steve Jones. And Steve, we have nice new shiny backgrounds behind us as well, so it looks beautiful. It looks gorgeous.
Hi. How's everybody doing?
It was shiny, brand new Steve as well, as you can tell.
That's great. It's the way it should be. All right. So let's start with the topic du jour in college football. We all know what that is. It's Deion Sanders.
Oh, boy. Prime time, baby. Prime time.
King of chip on the shoulder. Everybody.
Everyone wants to be him.
Just ask him.
Mm-hmm.
So Colorado State head coach Jay Norvell criticized Sanders apparently Wednesday when he said on his weekly coaches show that, quote, "I take my hat and glasses off when I talk to grown-ups because that's what his mother taught him."
Oh, boy.
Of course, Sanders often wears a hat, sunglasses at both news conferences or in interviews when appearing on camera as the head coach of Colorado. I think everybody knows that.
Yeah.
That's his style. Everybody knows that's his style. And Norvell was going to take his team up to play Colorado on Saturday night at 10.
Steve, I have a feeling, and you can tell me if I'm wrong here, that it might be a high-scoring affair from Colorado. They might run up the score a little bit.
Right. No, that they don't. Hey, look, you have to defend it. It's your job to defend it. It's not their job to keep it down.
Yeah.
And I said that when Bobby Bowden was doing this at Florida State, I said the same thing. I said, look, it's your job to stop them. Now, if a team is keeping their first team guys in there to do it, I have a big issue with it. If you're using at a certain point your second and thirds and you're still doing it, I have no issue with that. None. If you're keeping your first in, you're saying to yourself, what are you trying to prove here? I don't understand it.
Proving that wearing sunglasses in interviews is okay.
But if you're using your second and thirds at a certain point, and again, and I'll reiterate what I said at halftime of the game Saturday with Jack Ham. I said, I want everybody to understand, and this is before Penn State came out to start the second half. I said, you need to start the second half with your starters. Why? Because it's only the second game of the season. They need to get used to going into a locker room, and they need to get used to coming out, warming up, and then playing again. I said, then at that point, you can start substituting. I said, there's a reason why you do it. You just don't say, oh, okay, we're done for the day. It's halftime. No. Now, you might be able to do that, say, in November, but early in the season, you have to get your players used to certain routines, and one of them is going into the locker room, doing your adjustments, resting, getting fluids, whatever it may be, and then coming back out of the locker room, warming up, and then going back and playing again. So if that happens to be something that, that along the way, like if Colorado's in that position and he starts the second half, I will not criticize him in the least for that because it's the right thing to do for your football team and it's the right coaching move. Norvell's comments came after he said he and his players had to do, quote, videos with ESPN this week in the build-up for Saturday's game. He said they actually came away from the videos with a chip on their shoulder. Something tells me it's like everything was about them. It's like, what about us? Now, Colorado State is 0-1, and he's trying to get this thing going.
He's trying to get them some energy,
State.
some heat, some rivalry going here in the state.
It's not like the Sonny Lubick days. And Joe Paterno was, if he mentioned Sonny Lubick's name to me 15 times, he may have mentioned it 25. All the respect that he had for Sonny when he was at Colorado State. But that was a while ago. They have a new stadium there now. Now they're not playing in that stadium. They're going to play in Boulder. Norvell said, quote, they're tired of all that stuff. They're really tired of it. And excuse me, can you blame them? I can't blame them for for God, you want to talk about that? What about talking about us? But again, to ESPN, the game is a show.
It's entertainment.
Right?
That's what it is.
It's a show. That's why outside of the top couple of teams I'm talking about broadcast teams like Sean and McDonough and obviously Chris Fowler and so forth. When you start filtering your way down, they do the game in generalities now.
Mm-hmm.
Right? For example, let's take Friday night. Friday night, Keith Randolph of Illinois goes down in the fourth quarter. They immediately, I cannot remember what it was about. So they're tending to him, and of course, there's great interest here as to like, okay, what's the deal with him? Is he all right? Going to walk off the field? Well, no, threw up a graphic, and then the two of them had to talk in generalities about whatever the ridiculous graphic was. It was ridiculous. And then finally he went back to action, never mentioned Randolph, whether he left under his own power or whatever. Sat there and went, why don't you do the game?
Yep.
Right? And they do too much in generalities. And they've really, in my opinion, what they do is the fact they carry so many games is great for college football because you can watch any game you want. But at the same time, they have not helped college football by how they do it. That's just my opinion.
Not at all.
Norvell, they're tired of all that stuff. They're really tired of it. And I sat down with ESPN today, and I don't care if they hear it in Boulder. I told them, I took my hat off, I took my glasses off. When I talk to grown-ups, I take my hat, my glasses off. That's what my mother taught me. The CSU fans in the crowd, of course, clapped and laughed in support, which you would expect. It's,
I hope they do.
But it's their show in Fort Collins. That's fine. I mean, there weren't a lot of Colorado fans in the Fort Collins area. Norvell didn't seem to care that he might be playing with fire by making the comments. He said, look, they're not going to like us no matter what we say or do. He's right about that. Yeah. It doesn't matter, okay? So let's just go up there and play. That's just how I feel about it. I don't mean to take over the show. I'm just tired of it. I mean, I am tired of all that stuff, and I know everybody else is too, so let's go play. Now, Colorado State is a 23.5-point underdog against Colorado. And this comes after the nonsense with Matt Rule. He stood on the Buffalo. It's like, for goodness sakes. Right?
Yeah.
It's on. Okay. It's 300 by 160. Okay. It's like, whatever. It's like,
oh, boy.
What a measure of disrespect. You sit there and like, what the heck are you talking about? Like, everybody is, all right. I mean, Matt Rule has to sit there at a press conference and say, I didn't mean any disrespect. Like, what the heck? Anybody who knows Matt knows darn well he didn't mean any disrespect. He was just out there. Right? That's just not him. Right? And everything about the Colorado situation, which is to me, is becoming problematic, is that they take offense to everything. Like, well, no, so far, everybody has praised how you have coached. Everybody has praised your son as to how he has played. Everybody has praised Travis Hunter as to how he's played. Everybody has turned you into the top college football story of the year.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Not even close.
Right? Everybody has across the board, people say, hey, about Deion Sanders, look at the job he's doing. How many times have you heard me say in the past couple of weeks, look, the guy can coach. Okay? I have a lot of respect for him. But after a while, it does wear on you the chip, the us against, which just go play. Will you? Come on. The final score tells everybody how good you are.
There's a showmanship that is going on that is wearing on people quickly.
Yeah.
But if they can walk the walk and talk the talk at the same time, which they currently are.
Sure.
They're doing pretty well so far. Then I'm okay with it. I'm okay with all of the pizzazz, the sunglasses on in interviews, hats and stuff. It's Deion.
I don't care about that. That doesn't bother me. That's what he wants to wear. That's fine. That's what he wants to wear. I don't care about stuff like that. I don't. I don't care if he goes out there and he's got big earring hanging. That doesn't matter. If that's what he wants to wear, that's what he wants to wear. That's fine. It's just after a while, I'm just getting a little sick of the every little thing that comes up is like a motivator. Motivator for what? Here's the motivator. Why don't you go win the damn game?
Yeah.
Okay? You'd be shocked at the respect you get by winning.
Yeah.
They did this. They said that. It's like, hey, who cares?
I think college football was requiring a new face to it, a new person involved in the structure of the game, because I think just for so long we were stuck with, and I love watching them coach, the Sabins, Dabo Sweeney, the Brian Kellys. They're just even keel, generic, basically do what they want to do. But there's a reason guys like a Mark Cuban in the NBA as an owner or a Steve Ballmer get the attention is because they are just doing things that are extra. They're doing extra things here and there that is causing us to want to talk about them because it's not the norm. But Deion is not the norm.
But it's their personality. I have no problem with anybody showing their personality because you can. This is why I don't believe in trap games. I always find that to be nonsensical. That means nothing to me. I don't believe in bulletin board material. After a while, there's certain things that over time you say to yourself, who cares? Right? Because guess what happens? You walk out in the first play and you get smacked. And guess what? You're not sitting there going, oh, I shouldn't have said that about Deion Sanders. Or conversely, right? Oh, you're not thinking, I just got smacked here and they said that stuff about my head coach. I got to, like, no. You play. You play. All right. And what makes it a trap game is that, guess what? You didn't prepare well enough.
No.
Okay? And that would be for any game. That would be for any game. See, and I don't believe in that stuff.
So Illinois against Penn State is not a trap game, confirmed by Steve Jones.
No, but I don't believe in that, period. Period, I don't believe in that. I think you line up and you got to take care of business every week. Right? You don't want to take care of business? Then you're an immature football team. Okay? Well, if you're a mature football team, you look around and say, okay, what's the next threat? Well, that's this week.
Look ahead.
Right? And then you get ready for it. All right? And same thing with bulletin board material. Who cares? Now, I realize with Shakur Sanders, it is a little personal. And same thing with Shiloh Sanders, because you don't want people saying stuff about your dad. That I understand. Okay? Okay. How much more fair do you want me to be in this segment?
You're being very fair. You're being understanding. You're being,
Right. Okay? So I understand if, like, hey, they're talking about my pops. Okay. You know what? Over here in the back, I got that. I got it. But Deion is a big personality. I've only been around him one time, but he's a personality that's bigger than life. He is intelligent, articulate. He has proven at Jackson State to be a good coach, and now he's proving on this level that he can get his team ready to play against anybody. That's great. Now, after this week, now they'll win this week. Then he's got Oregon out there, and then he's got USC at home.
2 back-to-back.
Okay. Now,
big games.
You have to be challenged at some point. They are about to get challenged. Now, they've won on the road at TCU, but TCU is not in the category of USC. And I don't think they're in the category, in this particular year, in the category of Oregon. So we'll know a lot more at the end of the month about this. But to their credit, they have played great so far. To their credit, they have been offensively outstanding. The problem they're going to have against both Oregon and USC when they do play them is their defense has been no better than okay so far. And that's going to be something. Well, you look at how USC's played offense so far. Mercy.
Caleb Williams is licking his lips.
But Colorado will put up points against USC. USC, it's interesting with them. Sure, personnel changes, but they're still the same MO. They still give up a lot of yards. And they come up with a turnover here and there, and the turnovers mask the problems they actually have. Colorado will score points on them when they get to the end of the month. But this week, look, Colorado State, Norvell is now in, his second year as the head coach? So. They're not even close to where he wants them to be. They're a Mountain West team.
They're working. They're working there.
And Colorado's beaten them in 8 of the last 10, but they haven't played in a while either. It's not I don't think they've played since 2019. So Norvell's never coached against them. And look, he's in a state right now where, guess what? Before they made this move, the thought in Fort Collins was we can take these guys. They're on the schedule next year. This is going to be great for us because they were 1-11.
Yeah.
They're a bad football team. Yeah, they weren't good. Now this happens. Influx of talent, with all those transfers, and a bigger-than-life coach that sucks all the oxygen out of the state. I mean, I'm not even sure Sean Payton gets any publicity in the state right now. And he's the coach of the Broncos. But I am not a believer in bulletin board material. Who cares? I mean, maybe if it makes you knuckle down and buckle down and practice a little bit, but once the game starts.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So Travis Hunter is a player who's been talked about for the past few years. Of course, coming into college football, the number 1 ranked recruit, went, of course, to play with Deion after turning down Florida State and that whole debacle. That whole thing happened. And now he looks like a stud. On both sides of the ball, he's playing lights out. What are your feelings on a guy who is playing two ways, where there haven't been many players in the past decade or two? We haven't seen many guys play two ways to this caliber, where he's doing both things on a really good level.
When Charles Woodson did it at Michigan, his offensive touches or offensive plays were selective. So if you'd play 60 plays on defense, he may end up playing 15 to 20 plays on offense. Okay. Chris Gamble of Ohio State played a lot both ways, but then as time went, he then transitioned into more of a wide receiver, and that's how he made the NFL as a wideout. The Hunter situation is, to me, is actually simple. First of all, terrific player. And I was talking to LeVar Arrington about this. We had a really good talk about Deion, about Colorado, and about Hunter. And they said, I said, here's my issue with it. I said, let's talk about the plus. What impresses me is he's a really good wide receiver, but the skill in the next level that, like, whoa, is the corner. And the fact that he's so good at it is a big plus. All right, now let's get to the issue. Today was a cooler day today when we all came into work. It's been hot, and we're going to get warm days probably into the middle of October. Can you keep playing 100 to 125 plays in warmer weather, as tremendously conditioned as you are? Can you keep doing it at a high level? That's going to be what I'll be watching for. I don't have the answer because I cannot sit there and speak for Travis Hunter. He may be able to go through the entire season and have no issue with it, and all credit to him for it. But it is something to watch for in mid-October if there starts to be an attrition rate or not with playing 100 to 120 plays in a game. Okay? And that's what I'll be watching for, because right now they have gone through, 2 weeks of the season? This will be week 3, and he's handled it with no problem. That doesn't surprise me. It's going to be in mid-October if this pattern continues. And if it continues and he's having no problem with it, then it becomes no issue. But if you're going along and it starts to become a little bit of an issue, then how does Deion Sanders and his staff want to handle his reps and which side of the ball they want his reps to be on?
And I wonder what happens if, let's say he starts the game, they're on defense, and he gets burned for a touchdown.
Sure.
And he's all of a sudden, loses a little bit of the confidence. The confidence game comes into a factor.
Jeez,
but, for him, probably not.
It's kind of hard to imagine him losing confidence.
But what happens if you get emotional at that moment in time, you're angry at yourself, you then go on offense, drop a pass or two here or there.
Because you're trying to get it all back.
Right, you're trying to get one thing back here and there, and you're trying to be a home run hitter on both sides of the ball. and then it slowly spirals down during a game. What could happen at that point for him if he can't do it on either side of the ball because they're both affecting him at the same time?
I don't think that I don't think they have the flexibility to do that with him. Because I would sense the person that has to replace him at wide receiver is not of the same caliber, and I would sense the person at corner replace him is of the same caliber. So I think that luxury isn't there for them, and that's why it's hard to keep him out of the lineup because they don't have people that are as
good as
he is.
Yeah, he's great on both sides of the ball.
He's a very special talent.
Like the players, you said Chris Gamble, I think recently, Jabril Peppers did both sides of the ball for Michigan a little bit. He was a little bit
Jabril Peppers did a little bit,
yeah.
Like selective here and there. They did some of that.
He did. Looking back through other players, you've got like Champ Bailey at Georgia was the other guy who I could think of where it was played some receiver. A lot of them end up being just specialists, though. Like they'll do kickoff and punt returns.
Sure.
They don't really fully do the receiver, running back, slot type of positions, and then also play at DB. It doesn't happen often.
No. And like I said, that's why I pointed out Gamble and Woodson, because they're similar in positions. But, it's again, my entire point with him is going to be, okay, is there an attrition rate that starts to happen in mid-October because now the plays are piling up, and you had to do it when it was warmer too.
If you're playing in Hawaii, it's one thing, but you're playing in Colorado.
Yeah. So, I mean, we'll see. And then at that point, it becomes coaching decisions. How do you want to handle it? Because he's a guy they have to have. The two guys that they have in that lineup right now that are like the guys are Shakur Sanders and Hunter. Okay, that's now. Do I? Again, you sit there and you try to you try to be as fair as possible about this, and no matter what you say, like say the Colorado people are sitting here right now. As fair as I think I'm being here, they would tell me I'm being completely unfair. Well, what about all the positive things that say, well, you should be saying that? Okay. I will give credit where credit's due. Deion Sanders does not care what my opinion is.
Nope.
To which I answer, what a coincidence. All right, so, more important things in life. Unfortunately, Max Engel from Jersey Shore, the last we heard, he's not doing well. We have not heard any other updates since. Tomorrow night, Jersey Shore at Thompson Street Stadium was supposed to host Shikellamy. That game has been postponed. It is an awful situation, and not only the prayers for him, but for his family and friends, and for his teammates and his coaches and the community. It's awful, and there's nothing that we can say that's going to make anything better. There's nothing that we can say that, other than the heartfelt, our prayers are with him. But it's helpless when you're sitting there and you're thinking about this young man in the hospital, fighting for his life. I mean, because he's declined. I mean, they have admitted he has declined, and they've already postponed the game. But we wanted to make sure we did not go through the show without mentioning that. And there you go. So we want to make sure that everybody in Jersey Shore area high school football knows that we were thinking about Max Engel and his family. Next up, the Eagles play tonight with Minnesota. I know you'll be excited. You already have your Amazon Prime membership set to go.
It is bulletin board material for me, Steve. It is on my bulletin board to watch.
No, when I get home from the coaches show tonight, I'll watch the game.
Yeah.
No, I do. I'll watch Thursday Night Football.
I am intrigued to see what Justin Jefferson and the Vikings look like going up against the Eagles. I think that's the I guess best way to put it. I'm very intrigued to see what they look like because their last game against the Bucks wasn't great.
No, it wasn't. But the Eagles game against the Patriots was not a great performance either. So last year, let's turn the clock back a year. The Eagles were able to go to Detroit, and we thought Detroit was going to be better, but not to the point that they were able to get at the end of last year, where they finished 9-8, beat Green Bay the final Sunday night at Lambeau, and then started the season like this against Kansas City. But they went to Detroit last year, and they lost. The Eagles won 38-35. Like, wow, okay, well, the offense looked good, defenses. And game 2 was a Monday night game with the Vikings. Well, they not only won the game, but they were very impressive doing it. So here we are, opening game with New England. They win the game. What was it,
25-20. They were in New England as well. Yeah. So this is a home game in the Link.
Well, just like they played at Detroit last year at Ford Field. So they win the game. Patriots had the ball at the end, trying to drive downfield and win it after a bizarre. Why don't you punt the ball, Nick? It's okay. I understand the concept. Over here in the back, Mac Jones is their quarterback, so you want to give him 52 yards if you miss as opposed to 80 to 90? Okay. It doesn't matter if I give Patrick Mahomes the ball at the 10. It doesn't matter if I give Patrick Mahomes the ball at the 48. Okay. So I go for it.
Yeah.
But it does matter if I give Mac Jones the ball at the 48 as opposed to the 10.
Yes.
Okay.
There's a tier of quarterback you don't want to screw with regardless.
Yeah,
but
okay. I mean, it doesn't really matter at that point. Like, he's going to be able to go 90 no matter what, and he's going to be able to go 52 no matter what. That quarterback there, I'm not so sure he can go 90, right? But he can go 52. See, those are the decisions that come into play. And so they've got Minnesota tonight. The difference is it's on a short week and not a long week. There are 3 Eagles players out. Gainwell's out. Blankenship's out. And then obviously the linebacker, Nakobe Dean's out.
He's out for, it looks like, a few weeks as well.
There's no Dalvin Cook on the other side. He's with the Jets now. But it'll be a barometer game for both teams, a game that Minnesota needs to win to get back on track. Right? And the Eagles to show that, hey, all is well in Mudville. So they've got that tonight. Oh, one more note on Deion Sanders. A great comment by Mike DeCourcy. And before we get to Mike's comment, I want tomorrow's show, we're going to have Brian Barnhart, the play-by-play voice of Illinois, and Peter King from NBC is going to join us tomorrow.
Okay.
All right.
That's news to me, but I'm excited about that.
And Chris Solari. Do we have Chris on yesterday? No. We have Mike Gross.
We had Mike Gross and we had Neil.
Chris Solari on the Michigan State situation with Mel Tucker. So those 3 are tomorrow's show. Okay? Mike DeCourcy wrote, Deion Sanders, the man who calls himself Coach Prime, suggested media criticism of his decision to invite the players he inherited to jump in that portal has been too severe. He should be more concerned with the criticism of other coaches who have been taking shots for months. He says the media mostly just loves how good Sanders has been for business.
Not wrong.
Mike hits nail on head.
Hey, look at that. We're talking about him here in State College, Pennsylvania.
Well, it's not like he's never been here, you know.
No, I know. But it's not bad for business. He's not wrong.
He and LeVar Arrington brought that 8th grade All-Star game in. It's something LeVar pointed out to me. He says, Steve, he knows where all these guys are because he was so actively involved in Shakur's career. Coming up through the ranks, he knows where all these, and they know him. It's so much is about relationships, and he's built them. But he's right. He's right about business. It's good for business. Now,
business is booming, some would say.
Now, do we need to talk about him on this show? for business? No, we don't. Okay? No offense. We don't need to talk about him for business. We've got the Steelers to talk about. We've got the Eagles to talk about. We've got Penn State, Illinois to talk about. Okay? But every once in a while, something interesting comes up, and so you discuss it. And that's what we've done here. Do we need him to, hey, we did not get all the new flashy graphics because if you guys talk more about Dion.
Yeah.
No?
No. We got them because we love Steve Jones, of course.
Oh, sure. Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a...
Hey, it's bright and shiny. You can find us on social media as well. Our social media pages are up on the graphic as well. It looks beautiful, Steve. You're not appreciating the joy it brings. It's a similar joy level to, for me at least, watching the Saints win a game. Clearly they should have lost, but that's whatever.
We'll see. I can't see any of this stuff, so I have no idea what it looked like before, and I have no idea
You see
what
it in
looks like
you see
now.
it in your heart, Steve. You see it in your heart. But I want to ask, going on the NFL topic a little bit more, of course. There are some interesting games this week. You mentioned the Vikings-Eagles tonight, and I want to, I guess, talk a bit about the most interesting team going forward this season. It has to be, I'm fairly confident saying it, is the Jets.
Sure.
Because it went from this offseason, them saying Zach Wilson should be nowhere near this team, he should be gone, to them now being like, he's the guy, he is going to win us a championship. Like, it is fully 180'd. And yeah, Aaron Rodgers did a lot for you when he just came into the team and the energy and all of that around him. But this is the exact same guy you're now playing. You said last year who your top DB rookie, Sauce Gardner, was like, I want Aaron Rodgers over him way more, and like openly recruited a quarterback to replace him. There's got to be some friction there in the Jets camp where you openly recruit a guy. Basically everybody in this team openly recruited him, not named Zach Wilson.
Sure. Well,
and now Zach Wilson's back playing.
Well, for one thing, now they're looking around. Last year when the topic came up, there was the option of it. Now there are no options.
No.
And when there are no options, you look around and say, you know what can we do to make sure that the best option we have has the best chance? And I think that's the attitude everybody's probably taking. Zach Wilson is a year older. I think being around Aaron Rodgers may have given him a better perspective on how to play the game, where you can pick the mind of somebody that has played at the highest level, played in the biggest games, has won the biggest game in football.
Yeah.
And, what do you see? Why do you see it? Right. Now, I'll tell you I think I told you the Mark Malone story, right?
Maybe.
Okay. He's the first-round pick of the Steelers. And Terry Bradshaw, of course, is the quarterback. The idea is that Terry, once he gets to that point, will retire, and Mark Malone, after being underneath him and being under that wing for a couple of years, will end up being the starter, much like Aaron Rodgers ended up with Brett Favre. But this is now back in the 80s. Well, we all know Terry Bradshaw did things in such a way that were not conventional.
No.
And they are, I don't know who they're playing, but he goes back to pass, like kind of steps around some pressure, steps up, throws it into like a double or a triple to John Stallworth, who goes up, grabs it for a touchdown. And Mark Malone was one of those guys that was really like detail-oriented. Everything was there. So he's got the pad. He's writing it, everything down, every play, right? Very detailed about everything. All his preparation, very detailed. So Jack Ham was standing next to him on the sideline when Bradshaw does this. And Bradshaw comes jogging to the sideline, and Malone looks at him and says, all right, Brad. He says, now tell me, what'd you see in terms of the coverages and what they did and why you picked out Stallworth? And he says, I don't know. I looked up. He's the first guy I saw, so I threw it to him. And Malone dropped the clipboard, looked at Jack, and said, I can't learn this way. mean, it's in the Super Bowl, in Super Bowl 13, when Lynn Swann caught the pass in the back of the end zone, great play. Cliff Harris, this is years later. You know, Charlie Waters, Cliff Harris were the two safeties for the Dallas Cowboys. And Cliff Harris sees Bradshaw at this golf, I think it was a Sheets golf outing. And he walks up to him and he says, let me ask you something. This has really always bugged me. He says, we gave you, this is typical Dallas now, we gave you one false pre-read on defense. And we gave you a second false pre-read in that play. He says, what gave away the coverage? And Bradshaw looks at me and goes, I don't know. I just looked up. Swan's the first guy I saw, so I threw it to him. And Harris looked around and he says, it was like, used colorful language as he walked away and said, how do you beat somebody like that? We're trying to outthink a guy that's out there playing good old-fashioned country hardball.
Well, that's the joke in so many different, I know, like it's a weirdly like comic booky superhero story of like sometimes you get that confidence and then you lose it all of a sudden, you try and get it back, you can't get it. They're just told, just stop thinking, just go do stuff. And Terry Bradshaw just like, oh, I saw him, I threw it to him.
But that's,
you can't outthink someone who's not thinking.
Well, that's what his point is. Like, we're out there trying to outthink a guy that's out there playing country hardball. I mean, how are we supposed to outthink a guy who's like going, okay, hey, who's open?
Hey, Steve, catch.
Hey, go to the Toyota, make a left. Oh, geez, that's the guy we're trying to beat? No. But yeah, that's the old, like, and so now back to Zach Wilson. There are moments where Rodgers is like that. The ability, and same thing with Mahomes. They have that ability to improvise and so forth. But Rodgers knows coverages. He understands what they're trying to do. He understands what a false pre-read happens to be. So let's see what he's done knowledge-wise. And Wilson, remember for Wilson, he came into the season for the first time in his career with no pressure.
Yeah.
He came in through all of this. He's going to meetings, he's learning from Rodgers, but he doesn't have the pressure of playing and executing it. Now we're going to find out because guess what? The next 16 weeks, he is scheduled to be the guy.
Yeah.
And now the pressure's on to perform, and everybody is out there pulling out all their old Zach Wilson tape. Saying, okay, where are this guy's failures? What can we do? How can we throw him off? It's one thing, Buffalo sat there and prepared the entire time for what?
Rodgers.
What Aaron Rodgers does. How does he work in Randall Cobb? How does he work in Lazard? Okay, what about the Wilson factor? Right? That's what they prepared for. They did not prepare for how Zach Wilson was going to play. And Wilson played okay.
Got the job done.
I mean, the defense is great. The key for Wilson is going to be this. Keep your mistakes to a minimum. Right? Because you have a defense that's going to pay off a lot of games for you. So if you can get just enough points and stay away from big mistakes that has that defense out there with 20 yards in back of them instead of 80, the key for Zach Wilson is to make sure that every single series ends in a certain way. Every single series that Zach Wilson's out there needs to end in a kick.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the same point so many fans have made about the Niners, which is if you're Brock Purdy, he may not be the greatest quarterback in the world, but as long as he plays a clean game, this Niners team realistically should put up just ridiculous points on both offense and defense. Like, there are a very select group of teams where the quarterback does not matter. Zach Wilson, luckily, is on a team where he just has to not throw an interception every play. And just, if he throws 225 yards and a touchdown every game, the Jets will win most games because their defense is that good.
It is that good. And I know that Garrett Wilson's a home run player. I mean, I've done enough Garrett Wilson games in my career. I know he's really good. Lazard is more of a possession guy. Cobb is absolutely a possession guy. And Breece Hall helps out the running game a lot, just having him back because he can take creases and he can make big plays. Wilson has to stay away from a season where he has 15 touchdowns and 10 interceptions, because those 10 interceptions are going to make people cringe.
If he goes 20 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, I think that's a good season.
Yeah, if it's 3-1, I can live with. Yeah.
21-7 is what I think they're telling him his aim is get us 1 to 2 touchdowns a game and keep it to a maximum of a pick every other game, basically.
And the bottom line is,
win.
He came into the season for the first time in years without any pressure on him. He was going to be the backup. He was not going to play much. He was going to run the scout team, because that's what the backup quarterback in the NFL does.
Yeah.
They run the scout team. And now it's back to being like the guy again. And
it is.
You can talk about you can talk about a whole bunch of, but that's a deal. You sit there and you look around and say, you know what? It's different preparing to be the starter than it is to being the backup. And again, he prepped the entire offseason to be
the backup.
He prepped the entire preseason to be
the backup.
He prepped the week of the Buffalo game to be
the backup.
And now suddenly out of nowhere, it's back to where he was before. And the entire season, in most minds for them, in terms of where they can go, hang on his performance as opposed to him holding a clipboard and hanging on Aaron Rodgers' performance.
I'm guessing all season Rodgers will have a microphone and he'll be talking to him throughout the game, and they'll be talking and chatting, and Rodgers will be kind of guiding him in certain directions, which helps because respectfully, if you compare last season to this season, Rodgers is better than Mike White being your backup and stuff like that. It'll help. It'll help having a guy like Aaron will, if he throws an interception, Aaron will pull him aside and say, hey, this is what you did. Let's look here. Look at this. Look at that. Like, he's going to try and, he wants to see him to win. He's going to try and help him out. So it's going to be fun to see that, I think, the dynamic we see there.
But again, it still comes down to his ability to execute. Rodgers can't play the game for him. Nathaniel Hackett can't play the game for him. Hackett, by the way, is the offensive coordinator for the Jets.
Yeah.
They can't play the game for him. He has to play the game. He has to be able to get away from the 1-2 read guy, and he's got to be just a little calmer back there as to what he's doing, make better decisions. But that's what it's going to come down to.
Yeah.
And
it's very intriguing. I do know, and I know I may not be able to get you a little bit tomorrow, so I wanted to talk to you a little about fantasy football, because this is a discussion point we'll have all season long. I'm sad to report I did lose my first game. I know, heartbreak. The reason I lost,
so disappointed.
Personally, the reason I lost is I put a lot of money on Sky Moore and Dallas Goedert having more than a combined 0 catches apiece.
But Goddard should have. Okay, can I say that? Can I say very quickly about Goddard, and we'll watch him tonight? My biggest problem with Jalen Hurts in the opening game was he wasn't as accurate as he was last year. And it's just a game. It's just a game. But he kept trying to hit the home run play. And when you look at the wide field, Goddard's running free all evening long against the Patriots, and he just didn't go to him. I mean, that was really strange.
He didn't go to him, and for the Chiefs, Sky Moore just disappeared. He could not be found. There was an APB out for him. They couldn't find him anywhere. So both of those guys contributed to my loss. Jamar Chase didn't have a good game. The Bengals didn't either. And I also benched Rashid Shaheed, who for the Saints had a touchdown and like 90 yards receiving and all these things. So it was a heartbreaking week 1, but we're back week 2. I have faith in Trevor Lawrence to get me there, to get me over the line. Hopefully Jahmyr Gibbs gets the runs for the Lions instead of anybody else. He's quick. He's good. Hopefully he's their actual starting running back, because last week he wasn't, which doesn't make sense to me. But hopefully it's a better week, and hopefully I can report back next week saying Lights Kamara action is 1-1 on the fantasy football season, which I know you so deeply care about. Mr. Steve Jones. So very much care. And on the NFL thing, I did mention Trevor Lawrence. If you are the Chiefs right now,
well, I just want to know who are you sitting this week.
I am playing the same lineup.
Same lineup.
Trevor Lawrence, Jahmyr Gibbs,
okay.
James Cook at running back, Jamar Chase, Olave, Goddard. Sky Moore, I might bench for Shaheed, but I'm unsure because the Saints have the Panthers and they've got a pretty decent defense, especially in the corner room. And then the Steelers on defense and Bucker is the kicker. Bucker's going to stay kicker basically until he has a bye week. And the Steelers, I have faith in defensively against any team this season. But I'm not switching to Kenny Pickett.
People are rooting for you.
People are rooting for me. Hey, I have Kenny Pickett and I have the Steelers defense, okay? And I've got Dallas Goedert. I cover all of Pennsylvania.
Okay.
I have my Saints. I have no Cowboys because I'm not a bad person. And I have no Falcons because, again, I am not a bad person.
I see.
Mm-hmm. But Trevor Lawrence is my quarterback. And he and this Jags team is coming up. Yeah, it's a good choice. And they're now coming up against the Chiefs. Right. Jags are 0-1 or 1-0. Chiefs are 0-1. Mm-hmm. If you are the Chiefs this week, and of course I have a stake now because I have Sky Moore at receiver. Yes. If you don't have Kelsey for this game, because there's a chance he doesn't play. On his New Heights podcast with him and Jason, he said he was really hurting last week and he could not go. Mm-hmm. Even though Jason Kelsey said everywhere, oh, he's going to play. And Travis was like, bad, I was not going to play. So if he can't go, how do you feel about this Chiefs team around Mahomes? Because you've got so many guys that realistically should be good enough with Mahomes to kind of get the job done. Like, they're not the greatest players in the world, but you've got a good team kind of built around Mahomes without Kelsey even being there. Like, across the board, let's just go depth chart wise. At running back, you've got Pacheco, Edwards-Helaire, and Jerick McKinnon. Not a bad trio.
Sure.
They get the job done. Right. Receivers, you have Kadarius Toney, Valdez-Scantling, Sky Moore, who realistically should be good. You've got Justin Ross as a gigantic target. And then Rashee Rice, I guess, is their up-and-coming guy. He played real well. Yeah, he did. He took all of Sky Moore's points this week. But how do you feel with this team around you without Kelsey?
I feel the same way about this team around Patrick Mahomes, the same way I felt about the team that was put around Aaron Rodgers last year at Green Bay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, he had the luxury of having Dillon and Jones as the two running backs. That helps. Tight end, all right, is about the equivalent of Gray, the tight end for Kansas City. The wide receiver Watson that they got the first round pick, a lot of potential, but had some growing pains last year. Near the end, he was playing pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
Lazard was hurt. They had lost Valdez-Scantling to Kansas City, ironically.
Mm-hmm.
And I really felt that he had the kind of team around him that Mahomes has around him, because now there's no Kelsey and there's no Tyreek Hill. So they have to be more precise, and they have to have guys make plays. And that's why Kadarius Toney had such a bad opening performance. He was being counted upon to be one of those guys that would make plays. Because to me, you lose Tyreek Hill, it's the equivalent of Rodgers losing Devontae Adams. Last year, Kansas City overcame it because, in part, Kelsey's a special talent, and Mahomes made everything around him work. They need a little bit of a running game to help him out. So whether it's Pacheco, McKinnon, or Clyde Edwards-Helaire, they need something around him. They also have to play better defensively. They did not, against the power game of Detroit, they did not handle it well. Getting Chris Jones back is going to help them defensively, because the Kansas City defense is a very good defense. It is not a great defense. And Mahomes does mean a tremendous amount to them, but you can't just keep running Mahomes out there and just expect him to perform miracles the entire time.
Yeah.
You have to have personnel around him. And they got away with winning a Super Bowl last year with Tyreek Hill in Miami. Well, now they're trying to go. They couldn't get through the first week with Tyreek Hill in Miami and Travis Kelce
out
in street clothes. That's a lot with a new offensive line as well.
Mm-hmm.
And Detroit's defense played well. Remember, Jacksonville last year in the playoffs gave Kansas City a lot of trouble. And their quarterback is a big league player. And they're going to play Kansas City with a level of confidence that they may not have had 2 years ago. They may be playing Kansas City this year with a confidence they would not have had a year ago this month, as opposed to the confidence they had at the end after beating the Chargers in the playoff game.
By the way, this Jags team, I know we discussed it a bit, they're good. They're like a legitimately good team. Offensively, they've got a good O-line.
Yeah.
They have a heck of a skill position group. You've got running back Etienne, Bigsby, JaMychal Hasty's not half bad.
Yeah.
Receivers is Calvin Ridley, Christian Kirk, Zay Jones, Jamal Agnew, Parker Washington, like good guys.
Yes.
Evan Ingram's not a half bad tight end.
Yeah.
And defensively, they're not terrible
He's not
either.
a bad pass-catching tight end. He's not a good blocker.
But if you're Lawrence, you're relying on him to pass catch. So
sure, right.
That's
no,
what
I'm just saying.
yeah.
I'm just saying. He's not the guy you want to keep in the chip.
Yeah, but outside of him, they have a really interesting just team everywhere. I mean, for me, my favorite player in the Jags is their free safety, Andre Sisco.
Very
Syracuse guy, real good.
Very good player.
But they've got a defense that should be a home run defense. You've got Trayvon Walker, first overall pick. You've got Josh Allen, Devin Lloyd, Oluokun, Tyson Campbell, like a really good team.
Well, you know what happens when you draft high?
You get good talent.
You end up getting some good. That's the purpose of the draft.
And they built it to now all of a sudden have this team, and the Chiefs are going to Jacksonville. If the Jags win this game, start off 2-0, Chiefs 0-2, I don't think there's a worry for the Chiefs yet because, of course, they are missing Kelce.
Right.
But you have to not feel as comfortable anymore because you put yourself 0-2 in the hole going up in a division that realistically should be better than it is.
Yeah.
Where the Chargers lost, Broncos lost, you lost, the Raiders won. You could have a run for your money going to the playoffs this year.
Yeah, and well, if you take care of business in your own division, which is the point where Kelsey's going to be healthy again, and that's the amazing element of Kelsey's game. You go into every game knowing he's the guy. How does he get open? If your game plan is tilted so much in 87's direction, it's remarkable.
It's the same thing, the Gronk fallacy that New England had, where it's like, you know he's going to throw it to Gronk enough to get him 100 yards a game. Just game plan around him, but you can't game plan for him because he's a matchup nightmare.
I know.
That's what teams struggle with for years with Gronk. It's the same thing now, except the difference is I love Brady. Mahomes is a better quarterback than him in terms of he can do some crazy, ridiculous things that are superhuman. So he's going to get him more open more often in more positions where you wouldn't expect him to be.
Right.
So I don't know. I'm intrigued. And if the Jags can win and the Chiefs go 0-2, let's say the Raiders, Chargers, Broncos win. They're all 1-1 or 2-0 or whatever. The Jags get off to a real hot start in a division that is going to be terrible outside of them.
Panic.
And the Chiefs, I don't think panic, but they're sitting here kind of like, oh.
Yes, but Monday morning, we will then have overreaction Monday. Oh, my goodness.
If you're the Chiefs and you're sitting there after week 2, 0-2, hypothetically, do you call the Tampa Bay Buccaneers about Mike Evans? Didn't sign a contract extension.
I don't know what
wants to leave.
I don't know what Brett Veach's what kind of room he has with the cap. That I don't know, and I don't know how you make that work. I'm a big believer you cannot just throw anybody out there. What has benefited? Let's go to Jalen Hurts tonight. What benefits him above all? He's got Brown, Devontae Smith. Right, and Goddard's a really good tight end. He's got terrific people to throw to. Now I know the Giants lost 40-0. I got that in the opener. But what didn't Daniel Jones have last year? You didn't have really any like major league receivers to go to. You just can't do the dime a dozen approach.
Mm-hmm.
You can't. That's what makes the Bills so mystifying. Between Davis and Diggs, you have two really good receivers. And then Kincaid, right? Dawson Knox. You have some a lot of good players. The problem is they don't have a running game. The running game is not very good.
Hands it off to James Cook. Give him 500 yards a game.
It's like, I'm not as big on James Cook as other people are. I'm like,
Yeah.
To me, he's just another guy. He just happens to be Dalvin Cook's brother. Right? I understand that, but that's what he is.
Breaking my heart.
But that's if you take a dime a dozen approach on your skill guys. Oh, there are 1,000 receivers out there. We'll get 4 of them. No, you have to have the ability, especially in big games, to get the ball. Then see, this is where Tony helped them out last year.
Mm-hmm.
Tony actually played well for Kansas City. The opening game against Detroit, he played like he did with the Giants.
Yep. And it's not like these passes were terrible throws. They were to him. They were through his hands.
Well, the pick 6.
Off his hands.
Okay, in a game where like it's one score. Well, guess what? The score happened to be that was won on a perfectly thrown ball. Couldn't have been thrown any better.
Mm-hmm.
Just like the Patriots when they played the Eagles. What was the key play of the game? The Slay interception return for a touchdown. I'm sorry. How well was that ball thrown by Mac Jones? It's thrown really well. Quarterback gets, Jones threw a pick 6. Really? He threw a pick 6. While being accurate in the statement, if you watch the game, like, well, that wasn't really his fault. Same thing with Mahomes. He threw a pick 6. It wasn't really his fault.
No.
Right. Have you ever shook hands with somebody wearing those gloves?
Those things stick.
Right. Pulling to get your hand out. It's like, come on. I mean, Jack Ham laughs about that all the time. He says, how do you drop a ball with those gloves?
They could use Keandre Lambert-Smith right about now.
Yeah.
Drew Aller is never going to give him up. That's not happening.
No. I'll say this in practice. They were practicing yesterday, linebacker drills and breaking and getting an interception. Manny Diaz threw the ball up and Abdul Carter reached up with one hand and went, it's like, okay. That's a pretty good play.
Yeah. Again, it helps when you have a guy who's as good as Abdul Carter is, or as good as Keandre Lambert-Smith is, where it gives you a bit of leeway here and there.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not bad, but of course
they'll have to be good on Saturday.
They will have to be good on Saturday.
You want to be able to take away their running game. You want to make them one-dimensional and throw the football. It's not like Altmaier can't throw the football. Altmaier moves pretty well, and not only that, moves a lot like Green does. But he's a better thrower than Green. Throws a really nice ball. But, yeah, you're going to have to put some pressure on him. Do everything you can. If you can make a team one-dimensional, boy, does that make a big difference. That's why when you go on the road, right, no matter what the weather condition, no matter what the stadium, your running game and your defense
travels.
Always travels.
Always. And if you want to listen to the game, you can, of course, listen to it with the man sitting across from me here, Mr. Steve Jones, on 99.5 and 107.5 The Bus and 103.7, 104.3 Bigfoot Country Legends.
I'd like to point out Jack Ham is the brains of the operation, just so you know.
Yes. But that, of course, means Steve is the brawn of the operation, is what he's saying here. He's leaving that part out of the statement that he stated. So, yeah, I hear what you don't say. I listen to it.
Sure.
And you can listen to it more often here on Sports Talk with Steve Jones, a 7 Mountains Media production. Check back daily for all the latest sports news analysis. The voice